Welcome to Python Pro, a 30-day workshop by CTC. And today on day 7, we will be looking on the nested for loop and its examples. So moving on to what is a nested for loop. A nested for loop is nothing but a for loop inside a for loop. You will have a outer for loop, and inside that you will be having one or more inner for loops. And the syntax goes like, you have your same for syntax. You have your for keyword and then your iterable and then in keyword and your sequence in which or the sequence through which you want to iterate. Followed by your inner for loop, same your inner iterable and your inner collection will be there, and then the code for the inner loop will be given. And if any, say if you want to give any statements or any code blocks for the outer for loop, you can either mention it right after this outer for loop statement, or once you finish this for inner for loop code, you can mention it after this segment. So moving on to how how nested for loop looks and how it works. We have the first outer for loop as I in range of 2, which means I is 0 and 0 till 2 it runs, and it was going to print I first. So it prints 0 first, and then for j in range of 10 to 13, so now j is 10, it prints j as 10. Now j gets incremented to 11 and it prints 11, incremented to 12, it prints 12. Again it gets incremented to 13, but now the condition goes like 13 less than 13, which is false, and it exits the for loop. Yet our outer for loop is still not over. So our outer for loop where I was 0 now gets incremented to 1. So print I, where I'm going to print 1. And again we are going to print the j loop. So j starts with 10. I'm printing 10. Again incremented to 11, printing 11, and incremented to 12, printing 12. And when it comes to 13 less than 13 is false. It goes again to the outer loop. Now the range I gets into 2, and 2 less than 2 statement also fails, and this loop is now over. And let us see an example where you are going to print every adjective for a fruit. Say each adjective for a fruit. Where you have red, big, and tasty. So the first for loop is going to take elements from the adjective list, and the second loop is going to take the fruits from the y, which is going to represent each element in the fruits list. And now I'm going to print x and y. So first my x is going to be red and y is going to be apple. So red and apple. And next y is going to get incremented. Y moves to banana. X remains same. So red and banana. And again y gets incremented to cherry. You get red and cherry. Now this loop is done. I mean, there are no more elements to iterate. So we go to the outer loop where x moves to big, and similarly, as you can see, the flow goes on. Let us understand for loop better with a flow chart. Starting with, we have a start state and then which enters our for loop. Taking this example, let us say we have I starting from 0 to 5, and the condition goes like 0 less than 5. It checks if 0 is less than 5. This is true, and the condition 1 is true. It moves to the next condition where I have something called j in range of 4, which means j is also 0, and it checks 0 is less than 4, which is also true. It moves on to the block of statement that it needs to be print. Say it needs to print. So we have print j. J over here is 0, so it is going to print j first. So say I have 0 starting. And now I have to increment this 0. So as j is equal to, j was 0, say j was 0, now it is 1. And 1 is less than 4, we are going to print 1 again. And now again I increment j to 2. 2 less than 4, print 2. Make this as 3, 3 less than 4, print 3. And then now I have 4. 4 less than 4 condition does not satisfy. So this segment is over. Now we have something called the print I statement. I, as we know, is also 0. The j started from 0, I also started from 0. So now I am going to print 0. And this outer for loop gets incremented to 1. So now my I is 1. Again, this inner for loop gets executed where I'm going to print the same this list. So 0, I have 0, 1, 2, 3. Say I'm continuing my output over here. And again, once this inner loop ends, we have print I. I over here is 1 currently, so we are going to print 1. Now increment to 1 to 2. Again, you're going to print the same. So 0, 1, 2, 3. And now to print I, you have 2 as I. Once I is 2 is printed, we are going to increment it to 3, and it goes on and on and on. So this is a simple for loop statement for your understanding. Let us move on to the sums. And say the target t is equal to 9. So we have to return the index value of which two numbers will give us their sum as equal to the target. Say I have here 2 and 7 gives us 9. So I have to return the index value of 2 and 7. Index starts from 0 and this is 1, 2 and 3. So my index value that is supposed to be returned is going to be 0 and 1. So 0, 1 is supposed to be the answer for this question. So how do we do this problem? Say we declare the same list that we get and then we declare the target also. And now we'll use our for loop for I in range of, so range of length of this list. So len of C. So this loop is going to run till the length of this C, which is going to be 4. And the second loop is going to be like for J. We're going to take another loop, but this time it is going to start from I plus 1 and the length is the same, length of C. If you're wondering why I've taken length of C and here I have taken I plus length of C. So I initially it is going to be 0. Say it starts from the 0th index, while J is going to, we are going to compare each value. Say we are going to iterate 2 and add it with the rest of the list. Say at first this is 2, 7, 15 and 11, or let us have it as 7 in the end. So this is my list now. So my I is going to be here when the loop is going to start, and my J is going to be here. My inner loop is going to be here. So I'm going to check, I'm going to add and check if this result is going to be equal to 9. So this returns 13, which is not equal to 9. So J gets incremented, it moves to 15. And again, now it checks with 2 and 15. The result is 17, still not equal. Now J is incremented to 7. Now when it checks, it returns the value as 9. And this is why we have started with I plus 1 and till the same length of C. So now that you have figured out you will be able to write what the logic is going to be after this for loop. So we are going to check if the value which is in the ith index and the sum of values of those in the ith index and the jth index, cc of j, are they equal to target, which is t. We are going to check if the one in the index value of I and the one in index j return a sum of 9, which is t. And if so, we are going to store it in R, say I comma j as a list. And once this ends, we are going to print it. Print of R. And this question is done. Moving on to the other questions. We have a star pyramid. Say we have to print asterisks, like say 1. If the length is 4, the dot should start from here as 1. Say this is going to be 1, and this is 2, 3. We are supposed to derive this pattern, and let us see how this pattern will be printed. Here we have, let us take the number of rows. Since say I have 4 rows, I have my first star here. Line 2 is going to have 2 star. Line 3 will have 3. Line 4 is going to have 4 stars. So this is the pattern I want to print. So in each line, the number of stars is getting increased, and it is left aligned, as you see. This is how it looks like. So it's the one that stands alone is on the top, and the one with 4 stars will go here. So considering each line as a row, I'm going to declare a variable called row and get the number of rows that I want to print, say 4. And now I will be using the for loops. So for I in range of 1, comma, let us just have it as R and not as row. So R plus 1. So it starts from 1 and goes to R plus 1, which is going to be like, it is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, and this condition will fail at 5. So it will have 5 less than 5, so this condition fails. We will still have 4 rows printed. So once inside this for loop, we are going to have another for loop for j. Say here we are going to only print I, range of I. And now we have nothing, but we are just going to print stars for asterisks in a sequence. So the print statement goes like, we are going to have a star. As you can see, this has no space while it starts. It only has space or it has to stop after it prints I elements in it. So now we will give an end that will have just empty spaces. How much empty spaces should I print? Like that. And then we are going to give another print outside. So let us check how this is going to work. For the first I is going to be 0. Sorry, I starts from 1. So I is equal to 1. And j is going to be 0. And it moves till I. So I'm going to print star, and now I'll have to increment j as 1, and the range is also in I, which is also 1. So it is going to check if I less than 1. No, this condition fails. So we move on and increment the outer loop. So now I is 2. It again comes here, but wait, I missed this print statement where we move on to the next line. So once I printed the first star, and I increment j and the condition fails, I move on to this print statement where I print nothing, which means it is going to skip to the next line. And once I skip to the next line, I'll be moving on to the outer loop. So now I increment I as 2, and now I move on to the inner loop again. Now j is going to be 0, and the I is going to take 2. So now that I print star and a space here, an empty space, again I go and check. I increment 0 to 1. See, my j was 0, and now I incremented it to 1. And 1 is less than 2, so I'm still going to print another star and a space. Again I'll increment 1 to 2, and now the condition fails. I'm moving on to the next line as we have a print here, and then again I move on to the outer loop. Now I is going to be 3. We have the star using j. As you can see, the pattern goes on. Once this condition fails, we move on again to the next line, the outer loop, and this gets incremented to 4. Then we print 4 this time. And when it comes out of the loop, goes to the next line, and then it goes to the outer loop and increments 4 as 5. Now 5 is less than 5, returns false, and we have our sequence here, the star, as you can see. So for me to print this type of triangle, let us consider how this is going to look. So my last line is now going to have star and an empty space, star, empty space, star, and an empty space, star, and yet another empty space. So it is going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 stars on the above, and above each odd places we are going to have star, space, star, and then space. And again from here we are going to have 2 spaces, star, space, star, and 2 spaces. And now I have 3 spaces, star, and 3 spaces. So how do I print this using a for loop? Say now you declare, you have to print space as well as stars. So let us have something called space, SP, and the space you declare it as an empty double quote, with empty space with a double quote, and you are going to print it till r minus 1 times. See, I have 3 spaces here, which is 4 minus 1, before and after. After doesn't count much. Here only the before space counts. So we are going to give space as empty double quotes into r minus 1 times. And then next, how to print stars. I'm giving stars as S. Now to print the stars, I'm going to give the asterisk and multiply it to I times. I'm going to print this star for I times next. And how do I print the output? I'm using the concatenation operator. So print of space plus stars. So once I give this, we are going to have the first space is going to be like 3 spaces, empty spaces. Then I'll have a star. the star is concatenated to it, so star at the end. And then and the next iteration, it goes like the two stars and the two space and one star, space, star, and done. Exclude this part. So it is going to be three stars this time. And it goes on and on and on. Let us see the output on the program version where we code it and we see the result. Let us see how our two-sum is going to work. I've declared our list containing the integers and the target is also set. Now the first outer loop is going to start from 0 till the length of nums, which is going to be 4. Length is 4, so it is going to run till 4. And j is going to start from 0 plus 1, which is 1, to 4. And then I'm comparing if it is the number adjacent to each other or the number here gives me the target. Let us see how this runs. So the desired indexes are 0 and 3. Moving on to the pyramid, the left pyramid. Moving on to our left pyramid, we have the rows declared as 5, or else I can also get it as input from user. So input of enter the number of rows, and then I give a for loop which runs from 1 till the row plus 1 terms, and then I have j which runs from 0 till I. And let us see how this goes. I'm giving the number of rows as say 6, and as you can see, my output is printed here. A left pyramid with till 6 rows is printed here. And let us check on how we can print the same pyramid but with center alignment. As you can see, I've got the input from user for the number of rows. And moving on to our for loop, we have our I starting from 1 and it goes till row plus 1 terms. And we have two different variables that store the spaces and the stars that I want to print. As you can see, I have a star and a space over here, which means once I print a star, that leaves a space next. Let us see how this gets printed. So the number of rows, say this time I give 10. 10 here. So the star has been printed in, say, 10 rows now. So next we have the Pascal's triangle. So in Pascal's triangle, say I've declared the rows as 5, and then the triangle is a list that is an empty list where I want to store all my values that I want to print. And here we have two set of three sets of for loop, and for one we have to print the Pascal triangle where you have the spaces and you have the elements to be printed. This is a big for loop having two inner loops, and this is one nested for loop where you have only one inner for loop. So the first where we are going to print the number of ones, as we know the Pascal triangle, how a Pascal triangle looks. And then moving on to this for loop where where you have your I, j starting from 1 and it goes till I. This for loop is to calculate the elements that you have to print in between the ones that you print over here. And this is where you are going to append all these values into this triangle list. So once this triangle list is generated, say you have, as the Pascal triangle looks like, this. Say your Pascal triangle looks like, it starts from 1 and then you have two ones. And similarly it goes like you have a 1 and then you have a 2 and then a 1. Again you have 1 and here you're going to have a 3 in between and then again a 3 and then a 1. So looking at this Pascal triangle, this row where you print the list containing 1 into I times, I plus 1 times, is for printing the first I. The first I everywhere. And then you have the next for loop that is going to generate you the middle values. Say here you have 2 and 3 and 3, which is nothing but the sum of the previous two values. And now that you have this list, the list goes like 1, 1, 1 and 1, 2, 1 and then again 1, 3, 3, 1. This is how your list is going to look like. And now to print this triangle, we are going to use two for loops where you are just going to print the spaces. And then this for loop is going to take in charge of the values that you have to print from the list that I told you before. Let us see how this gets executed. Control S was like, oops. So as you can see, we've got the Pascal's triangle starting from 1 and then 1, 1 and it goes on.